Welcome back. This is episode 2 of our 3-part series with Mihai Faur, CIO at UiPath, co-hosted by Mark Darbyshire. In the first episode, we talked about leadership, trust, and decision-making in the agentic era. In this episode, we get practical. We unpack how those principles translated into real architectural decisions during UiPath's SAP transformation, from clean core strategy to when to automate, when to use APIs, and when not to customize at all. Let's jump back into the conversation.
Mihai, I was wondering if I could go back to something you talked about earlier on. You talked quite a lot about the adoption of SAP, and you talked a lot about how we used automations to, either address shortfalls or gaps between what you got out of the box and how, our finance department, for example, wanted to work.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that led to a very clean core. I'm also interested in, did we see a role for automation in the adoption to SAP, in the migration? So not so much, business automations, but I think what you might call more delivery automations. Did we look at things around, can we, accelerate the data migration, or can we deal with setting up parts of the SAP stack? And I don't know. I don't know if from your perspective you got much insight into that, but it'd be very interesting to hear some of your words around, what we did in order to accelerate the adoption. Could we have applied automation earlier in that fairly complicated journey, and things like that? I'm very interested, obviously, in the SAP migration.
Yeah, besides the change management programs that we ran when we launched such project, we didn't spend too much time in how can we make SAP more easy to be used by our people. But we ran typical training sessions with SAP, and we tried to engage them more into how can we use automation and not necessarily spend time within SAP. So we needed them to go and use SAP the way it is, so we can actually find out what we can automate. SAP, it's like, for example, even if you want to approve a very simple role for a certain person, you have to go and click different buttons, and you're going to have 3-4 windows open until you get to the last window where you have to press a button and approve certain things. I found that very unproductive, and I think I realized what we can automate, and that's why it's giving you a lot of insight into what you can automate now. We, of course, we obviously speed up the time of deployment with the testing, but more than the automation per se that speed up the process, we didn't think about, much about the user interaction with SAP. It's something on our mind these days where we go and see what people are doing, how they interact with the systems, and see how many of those things we actually have to automate. Think about it. Most of our processes are actually system generated. There's a bunch of automation on top of it, which we are running, like intercompany, payroll, accruals, recognition, a lot of them. There's still a lot of work that people are doing by interacting with SAP, and that's where we want to tackle from an agentic perspective. We also had to realize we made some decisions. For example, when we decided to drop on automation that was doing cash application, meaning where you take your bank statements and you are looking for your transactions or cash received from customers and trying to apply them into your necessary to clear your account receivable balances, we heard SAP is good, is doing 80% of them. They have their own module and you can do it. Actually, we realized when we integrated the banks that electronic bank statements went there, but the matching was not 80%, was only 60%. And we realized that after we went live. So now, from a user experience, we are building an agentic solution that is going to tackle the rest of the 40% of the cash that we receive from customers that are not always one-on-one. One customer, an invoice, it matches. It's very simple. You have so many use cases where customers might overpay you, might underpay you, might not even appear as a name on the bank remittance. Maybe the invoices are not there. So here it's where I think agentic comes very well into picture, yeah? And we build a lot of use cases. We know all of this from our practice, and we are building an agentic on top of this. So I would say we are going to agentify the CRP. We are going to now shift from implementing SAP using UiPath to actually running SAP using UiPath. And I think agentic is giving us this this opportunity.
Thank you. Back to you, Nick.
I was thinking about something that you've said earlier about the transformation journey and also about the flight with the CFO who was skeptical about this transformation. And it
Yeah.
made me think about a few questions that people are still asking nowadays. How can I trust this? How can I trust that? That sometimes you go and CTO and CIO might think about the automation or AI as a patch, or that
Correct.
they just say, hey, there's a lot of hype around that. I just don't trust it. I want to start with a small pilot. Well, you actually did a huge transformational journey and you put your bet on it. Yes, you work at UiPath, but still,
Yeah.
what would you say to someone who's skeptical, maybe like at the beginning of the journey, what would you say you would do maybe differently, or what would be the one useful advice that you would give to someone who's just starting that?
So yeah, I heard about the term like technology debt, usually applied to RPA. And I think maybe most of the people are seeing automations programs as short-term efficiency plays. And I think v- they're underestimating the potential of automation. Of course, I'm going to put here just RPA, but agentic and human in the loop and the entire agentic orchestration, the process orchestration per se, which we are talking about, which gives actually the value added that everyone wants to see it. And, I would say that, and maybe reframe automation, take the automation from this realm of like cost takeout, FTE reduction, things like that's not what we should target. It's not what we should chase. But I think we should go into the area of operating leverage. Because in the end, automation is, I would like to say, and it's a capability that compounds in time. Okay, and it's not like a simple asset that depreciates or a software that depreciates. And I would say like long-term strategic assets as automation is. You need to look at certain signals. Yeah, one of it. I'll actually, decouple growth from headcount. And I'll give you our example. Yeah? Back in the days, 2019, we started the automation journey to speed up the closing process. That was our focus. We wanted to get to 10 days closing or 90 days. I'm telling this story to many customers. How do you get to a faster closing, knowing that like you cannot add people, because even if you add people, you're still gonna have a problem later on. So we have the resources available. We had the technology, so we just did it, and we did it chaotically at the beginning. But we started with the low hanging fruits, and we did this, and we decreased the process time. We never thought about like let's fire people. Let's think about this. So we never thought about this. If I look now and I talk to my former teams and ask how many people do you have, what the answer is? We have the same team as we had with you back in 2018. 2018, we were like 300 million in revenue. And that goes down to like transactions, number of employees, volumes with customers, everything. Now we are almost 1.7, 1.8. So we're 6 times more, but we have the same number of people in the back office. And then we are looking ahead and we're seeing agentic. It's actually helping us to go from 1.7 to 5 billion. It is really true. So once you see this operating leverage, it's very hard. It's very hard to unseen. Yeah. And then I think automation is giving to companies a certain speed to adapt to changes. Yeah. And we can see we change very fast. We do automation. Now we have the agentic, the human in the loop, and the process orchestration. So we are doing much more than what the automation promised back in the days. Also, we are building so many assets you can actually reuse, and which technical ones cannot be reused, but this one can be used. Then there's the shift in the risk profile. Automation reduce, as we all know, operational risk. Robots do not make mistakes. Now with the agent, we put the human in the loop. We wait for a better model. We're going to see what's going to happen. I think we have to wait. There is still a lot of time to wait for the agentic outcome to be perfect, but it's still here. So the innovation is here. So why don't we just adopt it and try to put some guardrails, see what there is, see what we have appetite for, and then it's the talent signal, not labor replacement. You want to focus on talents. You don't want to focus on people doing repetitive tasks. That doesn't matter, And I would, of course, stop from using metrics like hour save. Maybe better we have to put this in the context of capacity unlocked, the system level. I'll give you the example. Back in the days when we integrated Salesforce with NetSuite, So the CRM with the ERP for master data transfer, also for the opportunities and contracts transfer. We had a lot of people copying these opportunities to create billings in NetSuite. Once we built this integration, which was a complex one, we didn't know what to do with those people. We took those people actually and we put them in the revenue recognition team, where they can stream the process to understand, customer contracts, read them. Now we're of course taking the agentic and trying to give this level 0 kind of work to the agentic. So I think you can unlock capacity if you want. I think, and the terms like, FC reduction, I'm not talking about this because that's, maybe some people want to hear about this, but I think, I would say cost avoided during growth. That could be something that you can put it differently, or ability to absorb, volume spikes without hiring, which can happen. If you're growing, what do you do? But at the same time, if you're decreasing your activity and you still have people, what do you do? Because certain processes require certain standards, certain people to deliver them. So you need to be ready. It depends where you're going up or going down. So you need to be ready. And I think automation and agentic is giving you this. And of course, how many robots do we have? How many bots? And try to map ourselves against others. I think it's about more about speed of modifications, adaptability, and also resilience under change. I think it's something that will not go away. I mean, if you're not doing RPA and automation, how can you do agentic automation? Because I know everyone is promising that technology that will do everything, but then building a foundational enterprise, you need to start from automation. And I see customers that have automation, very easy to build agentic automation, other customers that don't have anything, and we're still waiting for that promise that will come. I don't know what will happen with the AGI and how that will be done from an enterprise level. I know there are risks, there are processes, I know there are specific business requirements, business logic, I know there is a tech stack. Putting all of this together, what's the best technology to use? Gen AI cannot do it, for sure. And the ROI promise is not there. Everyone is talking about this.
In the final episode of this series, we go even deeper into what it actually looks like to run an enterprise with agents. From revenue recognition and document understanding to cash application and operating leverage at scale, Mihai shares what's already live inside UiPath today. Join us for episode 3. I'm your host, Nick Kabanov. If this conversation sparked any thoughts or questions, we'd love to hear them. Share your perspective and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the series.